The medical bay of the Stellar Research Station hummed with nervous energy as lead researcher Gray stared at the readings before him. His antennae twitched involuntarily, a sign of deep distress among his species. What he had just witnessed defied everything he knew about biological processes. The human test subject, Private Smith, lay unconscious on the medical bed. 3 standard hours ago, Smith had lost his right arm in what should have been a fatal accident with the station's cargo loading equipment. By all accounts, the human should have died from blood loss. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The wound had begun to smoke. At first, Gray thought it was tissue decomposition, but his instruments showed otherwise. The human's vital signs weren't dropping, they were spiking. Temperature, heart rate, neural activity, everything was off the charts. And through it all, Smith's unconscious face was twisted in an expression that Gray's xenobiology training told him was pure, unadulterated rage. "Doctor," his assistant Wells called from the monitoring station, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. "You need to see this." The stump of Smith's arm was changing. Where there should have been cauterized flesh and exposed bone, new tissue was forming. Not in the slow, methodical way of normal healing, but in violent, rapid bursts. Blood vessels snaked outward like angry serpents, muscle fibers wove themselves together like combat drones in formation, and skin spread like an advancing army. Gray's research pad clattered to the floor. In his centuries of studying various species' healing abilities, he had never seen anything like this. The human's body wasn't just healing, it was regenerating with a vengeance, powered by what appeared to be pure fury. "Send an emergency transmission to Central Command," Gray ordered, his professional composure cracking. Classification, urgent. Subject, human biological anomaly. He paused, watching as Smith's fingers that hadn't existed an hour ago, twitched and clenched into a fist. "And Wells," he added, backing away from the medical bed. "Call in security. Something tells me when Private Smith wakes up, he's going to be unhappy." The lights in the medical bay flickered as Smith's vital signs continued to climb. Gray couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stumbled upon something that would change the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever, and perhaps make them reconsider the wisdom of ever making humans angry. In the observation room above, the recording devices whirred silently, documenting what would soon become known as the first documented case of rage-induced regeneration in human history. The galaxy would never look at these deceptively fragile-looking beings the same way again. The calm of the medical bay shattered like glass when Private Smith's eyes snapped open. The security team had barely taken their positions when the human bolted upright, his newly regenerated arm glowing with residual heat. "The loading equipment," Smith growled, his voice hoarse but strong. "Is anyone else hurt?" Dr. Gray's antennae flattened against his head. The human's first concern was for others, even after experiencing what should have been a fatal injury. These creatures continued to confound him. "No casualties," Captain Reed of Station Security reported, his weapon lowered but ready. "But sir, you might want to look at your right arm." Smith turned his head slowly, eyes widening as he examined the limb that shouldn't exist. He flexed each finger, rolled his wrist, and bent his elbow. The arm moved perfectly, as if it had never been lost. The only evidence of the injury was a ring of fresh, pink skin at the shoulder where the regeneration had begun. "That's not possible," Smith muttered, then looked up at the alien medical team. "Doc, what did you do?" "We did nothing," Gray replied, keeping his distance. "Your body accomplished this on its own. When you lost the limb, instead of dying from shock as most species would, your system responded with unprecedented regenerative capabilities. Tell me, what do you remember?" Smith's face darkened. "I remember the accident. The safety protocols failed. I remember thinking about my team, how they could be next if this wasn't fixed." His new fist clenched. "I remember being angry. Furious that corporate shortcuts could have killed someone. The monitoring equipment began beeping rapidly as Smith's vital signs spiked again. The fresh skin on his arm took on a slight reddish glow. Fascinating, Wells whispered, all 4 eyes fixed on her readings. The regenerative process appears tied to the subject's emotional state. The angrier he becomes, the more his cellular reconstruction accelerates. Captain Reed stepped forward, his professional demeanor masking his unease. Private Smith, I need you to remain calm. Central Command is sending a research team. Until they arrive, you'll need to stay under observation. Smith's laugh was without humor. Calm? You want me to be calm? He stood up, the medical sensors attached to his chest falling away. That equipment is still out there, still dangerous. I'm not sitting in a lab while my people risk their lives. The security team's weapons snapped up as Smith took a step forward. In response, the skin of his newly regrown arm began to ripple, as if the muscles beneath were rearranging themselves. Stand down. Gray shouted to his security team. Threatening him will only accelerate the process. But it was too late. The sight of weapons pointed at him pushed Smith over the edge. His rage, previously simmering, boiled over. The regenerative glow spread from his arm across his entire body. Where his hospital gown had been loose before, it now strained against enhanced muscle mass. You want to study human anger? Smith's voice had dropped to a dangerous growl. Fine. But first, we're going to fix that loading dock. And then you're going to help me understand what's happening to me. Because if humans can do this. He looked down at his restored arm, then back at the stunned aliens. Then your galaxy just got a lot more complicated. Captain Reed made a quick gesture, and his team lowered their weapons. Even with his limited understanding of human expressions, he could tell this wasn't a battle worth fighting. The galaxy had just discovered that human rage could literally rebuild them from catastrophic injury. The implications were staggering. In the tense silence that followed, Dr. Gray made a careful note in his research log, Day 1 of Human Regeneration Study. Initial hypothesis, we may have severely underestimated the species' survival capabilities. And their capacity for anger may be the key to unlocking biological secrets beyond our comprehension. May the stars help us all. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within days of Smith's regeneration, the Stellar Research Station transformed from a quiet scientific outpost into the center of a political storm. Representatives from 12 different species crowded the observation deck, watching as Smith demonstrated his abilities under controlled conditions. Again, ordered Dr. Brown, the human scientist who'd arrived with the emergency response team. Unlike his alien colleagues, he showed no fear as Smith's arm was subjected to a careful incision. The gathered crowd watched in silence as Smith focused on memories that sparked his anger, the faulty equipment, the danger to his crew, the corporate negligence. Right on cue, his wound began to smoke and heal, the process even faster than before. He's getting better at controlling it, Gray noted, comparing the readings to his earlier observations. The regeneration time has decreased by 30%. In the back of the room, Admiral Thompson of the Human Defense Fleet stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Beside him, the alien diplomats whispered among themselves, their various appendages twitching with nervous energy. This changes everything, one of them muttered. If all humans have this potential. We don't know that yet, Thompson interrupted, his voice carrying across the room. Smith could be unique. As if in answer to his statement, alarms blared throughout the station. Captain Reed's voice crackled over the intercom, medical emergency in engineering. Human technician Baker, his hand, you need to see this. The observation deck erupted into chaos. Thompson and Brown rushed toward engineering, followed by a stampede of diplomats and scientists. They arrived to find Baker standing over a damaged fusion relay, his right hand regenerating from what should have been a severe plasma burn. It happened just like with Smith, Baker said, watching with a mix of horror and fascination as new flesh knit itself together. I was so angry at myself for the mistake, for risking the station's safety, and then the pain just turned into heat. Dr. Brown pulled out his scanner, his hands shaking with excitement. 2 cases. It's not isolated. The potential must be present in all of us. But why now? Thompson demanded. Humans have been getting angry since the dawn of our species. Why are we only seeing this ability emerge after we joined the galactic community? Gray stepped forward, his antennae quivering with scientific enthusiasm. Perhaps that's exactly why. Your species' introduction to advanced technology, to new forms of energy, to the true scope of the universe, it might have triggered something dormant in your genetic code. Or maybe, Smith said, entering the room with his newly healed arm gleaming, we're evolving. Adapting. You showed us a bigger universe, and our bodies decided we needed better tools to survive in it. The Admiral's face hardened as he looked between the 2 recovered humans. Whatever the cause, this information needs to be contained. If word gets out that human anger can literally rebuild us. It's too late for containment, one of the diplomats interrupted, holding up a communication device. The news is already spreading across the galaxy. They're calling it the Rage Protocol, the human ability to regenerate through sheer fury. Thompson closed his eyes, already imagining the chaos this would cause. Every military force in the galaxy would be reassessing human threat levels. Every scientific institution would want test subjects. Every corporation would want to weaponize it. Then we control the narrative, he declared. Dr. Brown, you're now heading Project Phoenix. I want to know everything about this ability, how it works, who has it, and how to train it. And you, he turned to the alien diplomats, can tell your governments that any unauthorized testing on human subjects will be considered an act of war. As if to emphasize his point, both Smith and Baker's newly healed limbs began to glow faintly, responding to the implicit threat in the room. The alien diplomats backed away, finally understanding a fundamental truth about humanity. They had discovered a species that didn't just survive adversity, they got angry at it, and that anger made them stronger. 3 weeks after the initial discovery, the observation lounge of Project Phoenix had become a hub of controlled chaos. Dr. Brown stood before a wall of screens, each displaying different instances of human regeneration from across the galaxy. In the mining colony on Mars, he pointed to one screen, a cave-in trapped 50 workers. When rescuers reached them, they found the miners had regenerated from crushing injuries, their rage at being trapped literally rebuilding their bodies. Admiral Thompson nodded grimly. Similar reports from the Jupiter stations. A reactor leak should have killed everyone in the sector. Instead, we have 30 engineers who regrow radiation-damaged tissue while cursing out the safety protocols. The room fell silent as they watched another video, a cargo ship pilot, caught in a pirate attack, regenerating from a plasma blast while screaming about protecting her crew. The footage ended with her standing in the wreckage of her ship's bridge, body smoking but whole, surrounded by stunned alien raiders who couldn't comprehend what they just witnessed. The pattern is consistent, Dr. Gray reported, his antennae twitching with excitement. Extreme emotion, particularly anger, triggers an instant survival response. The human body doesn't just heal, it improves. Each regeneration leaves the subject stronger, more resilient. And harder to damage, Captain Reed added. Follow-up attacks prove less effective. It's as if the body remembers what hurt it and builds better defenses. Like an organic arms race, Brown mused. Our bodies are learning, adapting, evolving in real time. A junior researcher burst into the room, clutching a data pad. You need to see this. The Mars miners, their children are showing signs. A boy scraped his knee on the playground and, well, watch. The footage showed a small child, no more than 6, getting up from a fall. As tears of pain turned to angry shouts about the unfair playground surface, his broken skin knit itself together in seconds. "It's spreading," Thompson whispered. "Not just occurring randomly, it's becoming part of who we are." "That's not all," the researcher continued. "The effect is intensifying. Second and third regenerations happen faster, require less emotional trigger. It's like we're remembering how to do it," Brown finished. "As if this was always part of us, just waiting to be awakened." Gray's instruments began beeping urgently. Energy readings from Earth just spiked. Multiple locations. Hundreds of simultaneous regeneration events. The screens filled with new footage, a firefighter walking out of an inferno, skin rebuilding itself as she raged against the flames. A construction worker rising from a 30-story fall, bones snapping back into place as he cursed faulty equipment. A surgeon healing from an accidental scalpel cut while focusing on saving their patient. "It's exponential now," Brown said, his voice full of wonder. "Each event seems to resonate with others nearby, triggering their potential. Like a chain reaction of human evolution." Admiral Thompson stared at the mounting evidence of humanity's transformation. "The galaxy wanted to know if we were ready for the challenges of space," he said quietly. "I think we just answered them. Not with technology, not with diplomacy, but with the most human response possible. We got angry at our limitations," Brown agreed, "and our anger made us overcome them." In the corner of the room, Private Smith flexed his regenerated arm, watching the ripple of improved muscle beneath the skin. "They thought we were fragile," he said with a grim smile. "They're about to learn that human weakness was never about our bodies. It was about what happens when you push us too far." The screens continued to fill with new cases, each one a testament to humanity's refusal to accept their physical limitations. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were truly capable of. Now, as their rage reshaped their very flesh, they were about to find out. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance had never been so tense. Representatives from 200 species filled the massive hall, their voices a mixture of fear, outrage, and awe. At the center of the storm stood Ambassador Wilson, Earth's representative, facing down the assembled might of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. "The human situation has become untenable," declared High Counselor RX, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "A species that can regenerate from nearly any injury through emotional response? The balance of power. The balance of power was never fair to begin with," Wilson interrupted, her voice steady. "How many of your species have died in industrial accidents this year? How many miners lost to cave-ins? How many soldiers to needless conflicts?" The chamber erupted in protest, but Wilson stood her ground. On the massive screens behind her, footage played of human emergency responders regenerating as they rescued others, of construction workers surviving fatal falls, of soldiers protecting civilians. "My people aren't becoming weapons," she continued. "We're becoming harder to kill, yes. But look at how we're using this gift. Every documented case has been in defense of others or in response to preventable accidents." Dr. Gray, invited as a scientific expert, stepped forward. "The data supports the ambassador's claims. 87% of regeneration events occur during rescue operations or workplace accidents. The remaining cases are defensive responses to direct threats." "That's not the point." Another counselor slammed their appendage on the podium. "Your species was already unpredictable. Now you're virtually immortal." "Not immortal," Wilson corrected. "We can still die. We can still be killed. We just refuse to die from stupidity, negligence, or the casual disregard for safety that has plagued this galaxy's industrial expansion." The chamber grew quiet as security footage began playing, showing alien corporations cutting corners on human mining operations, exposed workers suffering in unsafe conditions, soldiers being sent on suicide missions because humans were considered replaceable. You treated us like we were disposable, Wilson's voice carried across the silence. Now we're not. And that terrifies you, not because we're a threat, but because you can no longer exploit our apparent weakness. Admiral Thompson, standing at the back of the chamber, stepped forward. The human defense fleet has already revised all our safety protocols. We're implementing new training programs. This ability isn't making us reckless, it's making us more aware of what we can survive, what we can protect. And what of war? High Counselor RX demanded. What happens when human armies can regenerate from our weapons? Then maybe, Wilson suggested, you'll think twice about starting wars with us. But more importantly, maybe you'll start treating all sentient life with the respect it deserves. Because while we may be the first species to develop this ability, I doubt we'll be the last. The implications of her words rippled through the chamber. If humans had unlocked this potential in just a few decades of space travel, what other evolutionary responses might be lying dormant in other species? We're not here to demand new powers or territories, Wilson concluded. We're here to establish new safety standards, new labor laws, new protocols that respect the worth of all sapient life. Because if there's one thing you should understand about humans, our anger isn't just about personal survival. It's about protecting everyone who can't protect themselves. As if to emphasize her point, the lights in the chamber flickered, hundreds of humans in the audience collectively responding to the memory of past injustices, their bodies giving off the now familiar regenerative glow. It wasn't a threat, but a promise. The galaxy would change, one way or another. The distress call came from a remote mining outpost in the outer rim. Pirates, sensing opportunity in the chaos of recent events, had launched a massive raid. They expected the usual, weak defenses, easy targets, quick profit. They didn't expect the humans to fight back. Status report, Admiral Thompson demanded, watching the battle unfold from the bridge of the HMS Defender. 30 human miners trapped in the lower levels, Captain Reed reported. Pirates thought flooding the tunnels with radiation would soften them up. Instead, he gestured to the live feed. The footage showed the miners, their bodies glowing with regenerative energy, breaking through sealed doors and charging the surprised raiders. Each injury they sustained only made them stronger, their rage at being attacked fueling an unstoppable advance. They didn't just survive the radiation, Dr. Brown observed from his station. They adapted to it. Their cellular structure is actually becoming radiation resistant. In orbit, the pirate fleet faced an equally shocking discovery. Their ships had surrounded a small human transport vessel, expecting an easy capture. Instead, the transport's crew, enraged at the threat to their passengers, had begun displaying unprecedented abilities. Engineers regenerated from vacuum exposure to patch hull breaches with their bare hands. Security officers took direct hits from plasma weapons, their bodies rebuilding and becoming more resistant with each blast. The ship's captain, thrown across the bridge by an explosion, stood up with broken bones knitting themselves whole, barking orders through regenerating vocal cords. This isn't just healing anymore, Gray noted, his instruments tracking the changes. The human body is treating damage like a learning experience. Each injury teaches it how to become stronger. Thompson watched as the pirate fleet began to retreat, their confidence shattered by the revelation that their target simply refused to die. Send a message to all human settlements, he ordered. The age of seeing us as easy prey is over. In the aftermath, as medical teams examined the miners and transport crew, a pattern emerged. Not only had everyone survived, but they were stronger than before. Their bodies had developed natural radiation shielding, enhanced muscle density, even improved oxygen efficiency. It's like we're custom building ourselves for space, Brown mused, reviewing the data. Every challenge we face, every threat we overcome, pushes our evolution further. Word of the battle spread quickly through the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity had not only gained the ability to regenerate, they were using each confrontation to become better adapted to the harsh realities of space. "The pirates did us a favor," Thompson told his officers later. "They tested our new abilities in real combat conditions. Now everyone knows, humans aren't just surviving attacks. We're learning from them." In the medical bay, the miners and crew shared their stories, each account adding to the growing legend. They hadn't just fought back, they had emerged stronger, better prepared for whatever the galaxy might throw at them next. The galaxy was learning a vital lesson: making humans angry wasn't just dangerous because of their regeneration. It was dangerous because each attempt to harm them only taught them how to become more formidable. 1 year after Private Smith's first regeneration, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Dr. Gray stood at his old observation window in the Stellar Research Station, watching a group of human and alien workers collaborating on station repairs. "It's remarkable," he told Dr. Brown, who had just arrived for their final research review. "Not just the physical changes in humans, but how it's transformed everything else." Below them, a human engineer was teaching alien colleagues the new safety protocols that had been implemented across the galaxy. Gone were the days of disposable workers and acceptable losses. The human ability to regenerate from workplace accidents had forced a complete overhaul of industrial practices. "We've confirmed similar changes beginning in 3 other species," Brown reported, showing Gray the latest data. "Not identical to our regeneration, but their own unique survival adaptations. It's as if watching humans overcome their limitations inspired others to push past their own." The station's alert system chimed, not an emergency, but a scheduled test. Everyone, human and alien alike, responded with practiced efficiency. The galaxy had learned that preparation and prevention were better than counting on human regeneration to save the day. Admiral Thompson's voice came through their communicators: "Final report from the Outer Rim. Piracy down 80%. Turns out most raiders aren't interested in targets that get stronger the more you attack them." But the most profound changes hadn't been in safety regulations or crime statistics. In the medical bay where it all began, Private Smith, now Captain Smith, was working with a team of xenobiologists. They weren't studying human regeneration anymore, but rather using the knowledge gained to help all species become more resilient. "We thought the rage was the key," Smith explained to a group of visiting scientists, "but that was just the trigger. The real power was in our refusal to accept limitations, our drive to protect others, our determination to make things better." Dr. Gray's instruments had detected something else too: subtle changes in the fabric of space around human settlements. It was as if humanity's evolution had begun to influence the very universe itself, making it more adaptable, more responsive to the will of conscious beings. "Perhaps this was inevitable," Gray mused. "The universe has always been shaped by the beings within it. Humans just showed us how quickly that shaping could happen when driven by enough determination." The final page of their joint research report summed it up best: "The human regenerative response, triggered by rage but fueled by an unrelenting drive to overcome adversity, has transformed not just their species, but galactic civilization itself. In teaching us that no limitation is truly fixed, that evolution can be driven by will as much as by time, humanity has given the galaxy its greatest gift, the knowledge that we are all capable of becoming more than we are." As if to punctuate their conclusion, a new star flickered to life in the distant reaches of space, the first successful human-led stellar engineering project. It stood as a testament to how far they'd come, from regenerating lost limbs to creating new suns, all because humans simply refused to accept that something was impossible. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, perhaps, was exactly what it needed.